Right, y'all, welcome back to Come Arm channel. Okay, today we are doing another gun review, and today we are checking out the Smith & Wesson 500. Now, this particular model is of the Performance Center series, and this is the Performance Center 500 with the 7.5-inch barrel. So, I will say, as far as my background with the 500 Magnum, I've always wanted one ever since I think I played Resident Evil. Yeah, they had it titled The Hand Cannon in that video game, and it was just very, very cool seeing such a powerful handgun, just like a one-hit kill kind of thing. And yeah, actually shooting one in real life, you kind of understand how powerful this round and this revolver actually is. Now, oddly enough, I did have another 500 Magnum previously. That was like, it wasn't a Performance Center one, and it was also like the snub nose one. So you really kind of felt the recoil on that thing. It made it very hard to shoot because, again, it's just really hard to kind of fight the anticipation when you're firing such a large round. So before we get into the actual gun, we will talk about the round that it actually shoots. So of course, that is the 500 Magnum round. So here we have a 9mm round. So pretty standard. Again, a lot of people will carry the 9mm. It definitely gets the job done. Now moving to the 45 ACP. A lot of people swear by the 45. I mean, there's been a lot of firearms, particularly that have been very successful with it. And again, it just has some fantastic stopping power. Definitely more so than the 9mm. But again, depending on certain rounds and whatnot, so these are pretty competitive ammo or pretty competitive pistol rounds as far as what people carry and what people kind of swear by. It's kind of just up in the air if you want more stopping power versus magazine capacity versus weight. A lot of things kind of factor in. But then when you talk about the 500 Magnum, it is just on another level. I mean, it's insane. You could fit this. You could probably fit this 45 in the casing of this, to be honest. Yeah, it's a very, very big bullet. It's 50 caliber bullet, of course, which sounds weird. You kind of attribute that to a rifle, but yeah, just 45 compared to this thing, and again, just a 9mm compared to it. It is a very, very big round. And with this revolver, it does carry 5 of them, which is, it's a lot. I don't know what you're going to be shooting at where you really need 5, if you're actually hitting the targets. But yeah, you can kind of see there, fits 5 in the cylinder. Yeah, it's a very, very beefy round, and as such, it's a very beefy handgun. So when I owned it previously, when I had like the snub nose one, again, there was just a lot of felt recoil. Just wasn't like that pleasant to shoot, to be honest. It was very cool. A lot of people loved seeing it. A lot of people loved shooting it, which was, kind of fun to be able to kind of share that with them, even though the rounds were like, and still are like $3 a round. But it's a very cool handgun, draws a lot of attention just because of how powerful it is, how massive those rounds are. But I gotta say, this handgun is an absolute performer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about a few things. We're gonna talk about the overall build quality. We're gonna move into the reliability and then the accuracy, and then talk about kind of some modularity or potential uses for this. Now, when I owned the snub nose 500 Magnum, I probably owned it for about a year, I would say, maybe a little bit under, maybe like 8 months to a year. I have owned this 500 Magnum probably for about 2 years, and I love it. There's no way I'm going to be selling this to try and get like another firearm. It's pretty much impossible to replace this thing with anything else. But as far as the build quality, this is from the Performance Center line of revolvers. So with the Performance Center, they do a lot more attention to detail when it comes to kind of just tuning the handgun and making it a little bit more precise. The trigger is going to be a little bit nicer. The operation is going to feel a little bit smoother. And then when it comes to the actual machining, everything just is very, very pristine. Like there's no blemishes. It just looks pretty much flawless. So very good looking handgun. It is pretty heavy, kind of just going into that factor. It's something to consider. This is a 4.5 pound revolver. So yeah, if you're not necessarily used to having handguns that are that heavy, which, there's really not a whole lot like it, then yeah, you might, be kind of shocked when you actually pick this thing up. But in general, it's also just a very big handgun. So before we go into the size comparison, yeah, as far as the build quality, everything has been very, very smooth. Like the grip, I mean, I was kind of a little bit worried because it's kind of like rubber. It's not necessarily like a G10 kind of material. So I was kind of afraid that it might, you know, deteriorate, degrade, especially when I'm bringing it out into the mountains, or, you know, I'm kind of exposing it to like chemicals, like cleaning chemicals or what have you. But it's holding up very well, and I do appreciate that because when I shoot it, I'm not pretty much feeling like any of that kick going into the palm of my hand, going into my wrist or anything. As far as the function of the actual cylinder release, you got your cylinder release there, so you can just pop it out. And yeah, I mean, it's smooth. I'm not going to do like the whole cylinder spin thing because I mean, it doesn't really say anything as far as like the operation of the gun itself. But yeah, totally smooth. Getting it back into the frame, no issues there. As far as the actual double action, single action pull of this as well, again, very, very precise. I can tell that they had a lot of tuning on that specifically. So we'll kind of go over the double action. It's definitely heavy, but it is smooth once you get past that initial wall, once the cylinder has rotated. It's very smooth, very precise, very repeatable. And then when you go to that single action pull, I think it's like a 2-pound trigger pull. It is extremely, extremely light. You really are just applying pressure. The trigger doesn't even feel like it's moving at all. And it's so light. It makes for some fantastic shooting. I will say that. It's very easy to get some very precise shots because of that single action trigger. And again, talking about that double action pull, it's very smooth. So you can tell there's a lot of precision that went into this. I'm not feeling any weird sort of clunks. I'm not hearing anything weird. I'm not feeling any grinding. Everything is just super smooth. As far as mounting an optic, you have a few options. So you can actually get the rail to go on the barrel itself, or you can take off the rear sights, which you can kind of see what I did there, and then you can throw on the Trijicon mount if you want to mount like a reflex sight, kind of like I did with this RMR. And that works super well. Mounting, yeah, it maintains its zero very, very well. I haven't had any issues. I zeroed it like 2 years ago, and it's still super spot on. And again, you have your metal front sights, you have the compensator itself, which I don't know. I haven't tried taking it off to kind of compare what it is or what it feels like before and after. But I gotta say, the compensator, I think it's doing its job, because when I shoot this thing, again, I'm not feeling it at all. And it might just be because, again, it's got a 7.5-inch barrel. It's got a lot of weight to it. And yeah, I mean, unless you're shooting like over 400 grain rounds, you're not really going to be feeling that recoil at all, which is nice for a 500 Smith & Wesson Magnum. Again, I kind of showed you the size of that round. It looks like it'd be a little daunting, but with this thing, again, it eats that recoil very, very well. Okay, now talking about the actual reliability and the accuracy. I do have one gripe about the reliability that kind of was very concerning at first. So when I first got this pistol, I brought it out to the mountains. You know, it was clean and everything. I even cleaned it beforehand, even though it wasn't dirty or anything. And I was going to just put some rounds through it. Within the first 5 rounds, what happened is the hammer wasn't actually locking back all the way. So I would rack it. I guess you'd call that racking it, but yeah, I would lock the hammer back, and it was a very positive lock back, like I wasn't messing around. But then when I let go, the hammer actually released, and that happened twice out of, you know, a 5-round cylinder, and it was firing when the hammer released, which is terrifying to say the least. Whoa, that was not cool. It was pretty confusing. I've never had that happen with a handgun ever, or a revolver ever. But yeah, you can imagine, you know, you're getting ready to shoot this thing. You're like, all right, sweet. Let me rack the hammer back. And then as you're about to punch forward, the hammer releases and then just fires. And depending on where you're aiming it, hopefully you're going to be aiming in a safe direction. For me, I think both times I was aiming it down and I was racking it. And then when I let go, it fired into the ground. And I have a video somewhere. I hope I can still find it. But yeah, it hits the ground. All this debris kind of, you know, launches into my face.
It's fun.
I'll say that much. So I did have to send it in, and I was not happy about that at all. I mean, you get a revolver, you get it from the Performance Center line, and it's pretty concerning. And again, I've had plenty of revolvers. That was a solid lockback. So releasing the hammer and then it firing was, it shocked me to say the least. So yeah, I was not happy about that at all. So I had to send it in. I forgot what they fixed something. Understandably, they hopefully had to fix something because it was doing something wrong. But they did fix it, so they sent it back, and I haven't had that issue ever since. But again, for a pistol, or Performance Center pistol especially, that I paid, I forgot how much for. I think I got this for about $1,500, $1,600. You really don't want that to happen. That is catastrophically dangerous because let's say you have someone who is, a newbie, and they're kind of pointing it down to try and, really get that hammer locked back. And if they let go and it blasts around into their leg, that thing, it'll just shred them. And it's again, it was terrifying. You definitely don't want a 500 Magnum revolver going off when you're not expecting it to. I will say that much. So, yeah, very big issue there. For whatever reason, I think I just have like bad luck when it comes to like quality control. But when you're purchasing these firearms that are like, a couple thousand, 3,000, and they have just these really weird issues, it's like really discouraging because you're like, come on, like if I can't pay for more quality, where else can I find it without just kind of having all these master gunsmiths coming together and making this perfect firearm, which is kind of what I thought the Performance Center was. Okay, so looking past that, reliability at first was not fun to deal with because that was pretty scary. Now after that, I haven't had any issues. I've had a couple of squib loads, but that's because the rounds were trash. Dude. Now with those squib loads, I ordered those from My Wall, which is a website where I got some ammo. It was listed as non-remanufactured. It was supposed to be new ammunition. And I had multiple squib loads. And when you looked at the rounds themselves, this is kind of just me talking smack on their ammunition. Don't order from My Wall. Their quality control is terrible. So when you look at the actual casings themselves inside the actual round carrier that it's kind of transported in, they're all at different heights, which means the bullets themselves were loaded to different tolerances. Which of course will lead to squib loads, especially when the powder seemed almost like damp. Like when I shot it, it smelled like moist powder, which was kind of odd. So yeah, don't order ammunition from there. If you're getting the 500 Magnum ammo, don't order from there. But aside from that, no issues with the reliability. Shoots fine, shoots very, very consistent. The trigger pull has been very consistent. I haven't had any issues with the cylinder getting kind of like, jammed up or kind of stuck in there unless, it was a squib. So aside from those things, reliability was solid, which you kind of expect for a revolver. A little bit less moving pieces and stuff. Now, as far as the accuracy, it's hard to explain how confident I feel shooting this thing at long distances. But again, like especially with the RMR, when I'm just taking it in that RMR and I'm going to like 100 yards, which I've done several times, and I'm just consistently shooting steel that's probably, 12 inches by 12 inches, decent sized targets. But for 100 yards with a 500 Magnum, again, with a bullet that's this massive, like this thing hits that steel with some force at 100 yards as well.
Nice, first shot, hell yeah. All right, let's try it again. We have 3 more rounds, so let's try it. Oh, I knocked it down. Damn.
And again, like as long as you're accurate and you know your sights are on, then you can absolutely get some very, very accurate shots from 100 yards, probably even to like 150, 175 yards. Because again, at 100 yards, I was consistently hitting this deal. As long as I got my anticipation under control, I was consistently hitting that steel, which was, yeah, it was a pretty cool feeling, especially for such a massive handgun. But again, it does have that 7.5 inch barrel, and it is pretty well tuned. So as far as accuracy, this thing is just incredible. I mean, when you can take a handgun past 100 yards confidently, then I think you're pretty well off. So if you're going to be considering this handgun for hunting, yeah, it's going to treat you very well, and it's definitely going to hook you up if you do need to take some more distance shots. You can feel comfortable taking those with this thing. Now, aside from that, kind of moving into the uses and the overall kind of modularity, I guess, with this thing. So yeah, if you're going to be going hunting, I think you're going to be fine. Again, it does carry 5 rounds of 500 Magnum, and I think if you hit that target, you know, once, even, you know, twice, will definitely make sure that that target is good and gone. But yeah, if you're going to be going hunting, of course, this is a fantastic option. If you just want like a cool wow piece for the range, I mean, there's really not a whole lot of handguns you can get that are going to be as much of a wow factor. I mean, again, with how big, I'll kind of show you a comparison now. With how big the firearm is alone, yeah, it's going to draw a lot of attention. So this is a full-size Beretta 92, and I mean, yeah, it's, so I'll do this. Yeah, it's massive. It really is. Like, once you see it, it's hard to believe how massive of a pistol it actually is. I mean, I think that really kind of just speaks for itself. I've shot Desert Eagles, I've shot, you know, Mark 23s, and this thing still feels, you know, significantly heavier, significantly larger. And yeah, I think that's probably why it's such a smooth shooter when you're talking about, you know, how it actually handles that recoil. So as far as that, it is definitely a wow piece. It's going to draw a lot of attention for its size, for its looks. I mean, just the curves on this thing, again, the machining, it just looks super, super cool. That brushed nickel finish as well. Yeah, it's nice, especially once you actually start shooting this thing. Of course, it's going to draw a lot more attention because of, you know, the fireball you're actually making. And if you get people who aren't necessarily, you know, comfortable with shooting handguns necessarily, they're going to be a little bit intimidated. And even for people who are comfortable with shooting pistols, again, just, you know, the slugs that you're sending down range, the recoil that you're still going to feel in comparison to other handguns, yeah, it's going to be pretty significant, pretty cool. So as far as like a cool wow range piece, you know, this is definitely one of the best options as far as like handguns. But again, just if you're trying to add to your pistol or handgun or your gun collection in general, this thing is very, very cool to have in the collection. Again, it kind of dwarfs pretty much all the other handguns I have in my safe, because just, you know, putting that on the gun safe wall, I'm like, wow, it takes up like a third of the gun safe wall, which is, it's kind of funny. So yeah, kind of adding this to the collection was definitely a lot of fun, and I was glad I was able to finally pick this thing up. But there are, of course, other things. If you want to do the classic kind of YouTuber or gun tuber thing, you can try and make something that's not necessarily supposed to be tactical. You can try and make it as tactical as you want. So you can see here again, I threw the RMR on it, and that works very, very well. Handles recoil pretty freaking solid. Again, like after 2 years, the zero is very, very consistent. And then you can get holsters for it as well. So I got this holster made from Stealth Gear. When I added the RMR, I just kind of filed the Kydex down. And yeah, I would definitely recommend a low ride if you're going to be rocking a Kydex holster. But when you're rocking this thing on your hip, it's like, dude, what is that guy going to do? Like, who is he trying to attack? I guess if you're like making entry and you're about to like do some SWAT operation against some grizzly bears, then you might want to have this thing on your hip. I don't know what your primary would be at that point, but yeah, it's pretty cool that you can get holsters for it. So yeah, this one again from Stealth Gear, they did a fantastic job. And again, you have the option to kind of just file it down there. I think I just got rid of one of the bolts, and yeah, it works very, very well. It does kind of pull me down a bit because yeah, you're really kind of feeling the weight of that handgun. So yeah, you do have that option to get a Kydex holster. A little bit slow in the draw, but it does a trick. You know, if you're going to be carrying it, that is a cool way to do it. And yeah, I've tried to do like some rapid fires with this. I mean, again, it's accurate. As long as you can kind of control your anticipation, then you'll be fine kind of doing some more kind of faster pace shooting. But still, you're going to be very limited. And I think this thing in general is just a lot more pleasant to shoot on that single action. Yeah, it's just, oh my gosh, it's so nice. That single action pull, again, it kind of surprises people. I tell them beforehand to, you know, do a dry shot before they actually do the live shots because yeah, there's really no travel and it's a pretty light trigger pull, pretty freaking smooth. Now, if we're gonna talk about value, that's a little bit hard to judge. Again, depending on why you're getting the firearm, really depends on how much value you're going to get out of it. Again, for me, I've always thought the 500 Magnum was really cool. It's nice having that powerful of a handgun. It's fun to shoot random stuff with. I've shot like the massive gummy bears with this thing, and again, just doing that, I was like, oh yeah, that was definitely worth the money. So yeah, it really depends on what you're going to be using it for, why you're getting it. For me, again, it's just kind of something I wanted to add to my collection. I had one before. Again, I thought it was cool, but I wanted one that was a little bit smoother, a little bit bigger, a little bit more kind of like wow factor, and that's kind of what I got. So yeah, for me, it's definitely worth the money. It was kind of annoying to deal with that initial issue. I was like, oh dude, Smith & Wesson is tripping. If they're giving me a revolver that's firing itself, especially a 500 Magnum, not fun. But once I kind of moved past that and, you know, I gave them the opportunity to, you know, right their wrong, they did that. And yeah, it's just a very, very fun, very accurate handgun. There's really not a whole lot more to say. For me, the value is absolutely there. Again, I think you guys will appreciate it just for, you know, getting it regardless. As long as you have, you know, some money to spend towards the ammunition, because it is kind of expensive. I think now you could probably get like 20 rounds for like $50 to $60. Probably going to be the usual. You'll find it online. But yeah, if you're going to be doing something a little bit more like kind of performance focused, then you might want to get some more higher end ammo, which is going to be a little bit pricier. But I really don't think y'all will be disappointed. I mean, even if you get 20 rounds every like 6 months, it's still going to be worth it. I mean, you bring out family or friends for like a range day, you put out like some watermelons or some pumpkins, and each person gets like 1 or 2 rounds with the 500 Magnum. Like they remember that, and you know, if they're not remembering it from the pain in their hand, they're gonna remember it because of how massive, how cool, and how powerful of a handgun it actually is. Because yeah, I've used this on a few pumpkins myself. On the last Halloween video, actually, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things you can shoot with this, and it's just it's just a lot of fun. So I don't think y'all will be disappointed at all. But if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. Again, there are some things that I might be kind of overlooking, again, because I've kind of had it. So I've kind of gotten used to certain things. But again, as far as the reliability now, solid. The accuracy, very, very good. Trigger pull, solid. It's a very smooth firearm. Very cool looking again. I'll keep saying that because it's definitely true. And yeah, just, my gosh. I have pretty freaking big hands, and this thing is not making my hands look very big at all. I mean, let's kind of compare it to my entire arm there. But of course, the camera doesn't really do it justice. Again, if you guys have any questions, definitely let me know. And of course, as usual, I'll put some clips throughout this video of me, you know, firing this thing, because I fired it in a few different scenarios. Some more tactical, some more cinematic, some just, again, me just having fun with it. So yeah, a lot of kind of uses I've been getting out of this thing, and I've been happy ever since I got it. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. If you guys want to see a different format for the gun reviews, definitely let me know as well. Hopefully in the future gun reviews, I can get a little bit more kind of range time or record when I'm actually out in the mountains, so I can kind of talk a piece and then shoot it. But hopefully the clips throughout the video kind of help as well to kind of visualize how I've been using this thing, and again, just how accurate it actually is. But that is it for this video. I will see y'all in the next one.